I love pre-show.
Good timing, Waka, because we're on the air.
Yes. Da, 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 da. We get to warm up, gotta be ourselves. Hey, Susan, what are you up to?
Hey, I'm doing good tonight. How are you?
I'm doing real good. Mm-hmm.
So, Waka, are you hosting?
Oh, I wish. No, Sam's going to host. Boring. But I've got the pre-show all wrapped up. Okay. He says hit the live button. Are we live? We're live. We're live, Jeff. Can you tell him? Okay.
We're live.
I feel alive!
Ooh, that's one of us.
And Dave is still having an issue getting in, so let me try and invite him again.
We could hear him. He said something. And then he went away.
We already have a question from Craig.
Really?
Using the Q&A feature?
Yeah.
Let's see how that looks.
Yeah, pretty slick. I think that, you get to choose when we answer it, because you're facilitating it. So he's asking, will we get to learn all that we need to know about Twitter today? Susan?
Absolutely.
We've got a full hour, right?
Yeah, there you go,
If
Craig.
anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Between TweetMe and this broadcast, I can't imagine why anyone would leave with any questions about Twitter.
I love the confidence. That is awesome.
Can you hear me up my voice now?
And we can see you, David.
Yay,
Hey.
we have David.
Hey, David.
Hey, it was nice
David.
meeting you the other night. Uh-oh, I'm being...
Jeff Herb doing it wrong.
Let me. I'll invite him again.
Yeah, go ahead and send him another invite there.
Jeff Herb. Calling Jeff Herb. All right, he's got the invite, and I think we're done with Craig's question, so we're going to click done on that.
Okay. I had to do away with my headphones. I think that was the problem. So if there starts to become an echo, I'll just mute myself because I'll assume it's me.
You're a good
Sounds
man.
good. You don't think it was electromagnetic interference from your bike?
It very well could be.
Do you have a generator hooked up to that yet?
I don't, and here's the problem. This particular type of stationary bike, it works on a different type. It's like an ellipsis on here, and it's all cased in this plastic housing, and it's difficult to get into the wheel itself. And so all the kits are set up for a round wheel. This uses a belt that's on this like elliptical shape. And so I haven't been able to figure out what I need to do to make that happen. I know I could very easily...
It doesn't sound very hackable.
No, it doesn't look it to me either. So I've been looking at kits. I've been trying to figure out. I talked to a couple of people, and they were like, "Oh, I've never heard of that type of desk before." So I'm trying to decide if it's worth trying to hack this thing, or if it's just better to just buy a different type altogether and then make that work.
Or if you just want to, plug into the wall. I'm just saying.
Right. Always a possibility too.
You could always just do that. Jeff Herb.
Hello, how are you?
We're doing well here. How are you from the Gray Studio?
Oh, doing fantastically, thanks. Sorry.
Now, the Midwest is not scheduled to get the horrible amount of snow. It's the East Coast that's going to get the horrible amount of snow, right?
Yeah, we just got a little dusting today, only like an inch or so not bad.
Yeah, okay. And Susan, you're in Michigan, is that right? Or am I just guessing them?
Oh, no, I'm in Florida. We don't have snow here.
Florida. Oh, okay. So I assume you were at FETC. Close, right? They're both shaped like mittens.
Yeah, FETC's in my backyard.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and get started. and I'll do a really lame little intro here that I'm sure Jeff will be able to cut out later. We're going to miss him today, but we'll do what we can. So we'll have Waka supply the theme music. That's a really bad idea. Okay, so there we go. That was really good. I'm Sam Patterson, your host today for the TechEducator Podcast. We're here today with our hosts, Chris Nessie, David Saunders, Jeff Herb, Mr. Fact of the G. Fact of the G. Oh, I blew it, Josh. Blew it. I should have had that written out, right? I wonder if Jeff can fix that.
You gave it the old college try,
I gave it the old college try. Susan Bearden, and we're going to be talking about Twitter and how to do it right. The entire hour is dedicated to Twitter. If you want to ask us a question, just tweet it at us. Use the hashtag TechEducator, or you can leave a message on our website, or here in the Hangout using the question and answer function. If you want a quick tutorial on how to do that, just ask Craig Yen. He already asked a question. We already answered it. He says he's hearing an echo. I don't know if that's now or... Yeah, Craig Yen says hearing an echo. That is not a question, Craig Yen. Let's do a quick check-in with our hosts. Josh, what is the fact of the day?
What is the fact of the day? I don't know what you want me to go with. Lately, I've been learning a lot about the science and pressure of footballs.
I understand that's been big. I saw a link. I didn't actually watch the video, but apparently Bill Nye has now wailed in on Deflategate.
Yeah, but as much as I like Bill Nye, I feel as though his integrity was compromised because at the end of that interview he says, "Go Seahawks."
And I don't know if I got this wrong or not, but he also didn't really test anything. He just kind of said, "I don't think it works like that." But he's Bill Nye, so he can say that, and that's okay. But
right. That's got some credibility because it's not just your Uncle Dale going, "I don't think it works like that." It's Bill Nye, right? He knows how things
but speaking of credibility, when did Bill Nye become the voice of science in this country?
I believe it was when he added the science guy to his name.
That's a little
Chris Nessie, how are things going in the world of ed tech?
Everything's good over here at the House of Ed Tech. I just released my latest episode today where I shared my conversation with Tom Murray, and we talked all about Future Ready here in the U.S.
The Future Ready Schools project?
Yes, the big nationwide initiative and what schools can do, what it means. And it was very informative, and you can check that out over on the website, chrisnessie.com.
I'll have to check that out. I had a chance to talk offline with Esther Wojcicki, who just released a book on moonshot education. I think she's part of that same project. So we'll have to extend that conversation.
Yeah, we're actually, tomorrow night's Ed Tech Chat at 8 p.m. Eastern Time is going to be about Future Ready as well.
Very cool.
Excellent. Jeff Herb, how are things in Chicagoland this weekend?
Chicagoland this weekend has been just great. It seems like the weekend has gone very fast. I always reflect at this time of night when we're doing this show that I can't believe I have to go back to work tomorrow morning. So it's gone very quickly, but it's been a good weekend. How about you?
Now, were you at FETC this week?
I was not, unfortunately. It's been kind of a crazy week at work, so I was thinking about going, and then this time of year is always crazy with end of evaluative schedules and all that kind of stuff. So sat that one out, but I'm excited to release a couple of shows this upcoming week. We have Rochelle Wooten on one of them talking about Kahoot and how she's using it with teachers and students, and that'll be a fun time. And then
Nice.
Lisa Dabbs and I are in talks of doing a show about how she's supporting new and pre-service teachers, so that one will be good too.
Lisa's doing some awesome work with NT Chat and the other work that she's sprung out of that, so that'll be great to hear about.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So today we're talking about Twitter, and anybody on the panel new to Twitter? Have you guys all tweeted before? Yeah, we've all tweeted before
Once or
because
twice.
Once or twice.
I'm not sure about Susan, but I know everyone else has.
Right. TeacherCast
I've tweeted almost 7,000 times.
My name is Sam, and I'm a chronic tweeter. TeacherCast is really a place that's about teachers helping teachers, and one of the great things about having Susan here talking about Twitter is Twitter apparently made such a big difference to Susan and how she interacted with the world of educators that she's actually dedicated a bunch of time and resources to helping other teachers get started with Twitter. And maybe what we should do is just, Susan, could you share your Twitter story a little bit from, beginning to tweet all the way up through launching TweetMe?
Sure. I, like so many other people, I think, was first introduced to Twitter at a conference. I think it was actually FETC separate years ago in a session that Leslie Fisher did. And like so many other people, I created an account and said, well, gee, yeah, I wonder what I would ever do with this, and then promptly abandoned it for 2 years. And then I had never gotten back onto Twitter until I met Sylvia Tolosano, who is at Languages on Twitter, an amazing educator. Everyone should follow her. And I met her at a conference, and it was one of those cases where we were attending a session together, and we weren't even, she wasn't presenting or anything. We weren't even sitting in the same part of the room, but I heard her speak. She made some intelligent comments about what was being said at the session, and I said, I have to go meet that woman. So I went up to her afterwards, introduced myself, and I ended up visiting the school she was working at the time, and which was the Gottlieb Day School in Jacksonville, and was so impressed with the work that they were doing at her school, despite not having a lot in terms of technology infrastructure. And it really changed my view on what instructional technology was all about. And she, during our visit, she encouraged me to get on Twitter, and she showed me her Twitter feed, and she showed me how she was using it, and I was still a little bit reluctant. But she kind of looked at me right in the eye and said, Susan, sometimes you just have to push yourself outside your comfort zone and do it. And I realized, yeah, I guess she's right. I'd better give this Twitter thing a try. So I did, and I got hooked. And it's so funny because I tell people that Twitter changed my life. And that sounds really so hokey, but it's absolutely true. The people I have met, the resources that people have shared, people pushed my thinking. I was introduced to people who I looked at education technology completely differently than I did, and it just had such a fantastic impact on me professionally. And so I am very passionate about helping other educators get on Twitter. And I decided, because it was something I was so passionate about, I ended up creating an app for it. My school was a pilot program for a program called MadLearn by a company called Coursera, which is an app development program, and I think we actually talked a little bit about MadLearn a couple weeks ago on the show.
We've enjoyed the conversations we've had with Coursera, and MadLearn's one of those things that I definitely want to get working with, because what an amazing platform.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's terrific, and the folks at Coursera are just awesome to work with. And when we were piloting the program, the way TweetMe came about was we were sitting with the first 3 students in our pilot program, and we were all sitting around a table, and we were on a Skype session with Namit from Coursera, and we told the girls, we were just in the brainstorming phase, to create an app about a topic they were passionate about. And so one girl started brainstorming for an app about golden doodles, and another girl started brainstorming about an app centered around fashion and design, and another girl decided to create an app about Rainbow Loom, those little bracelets that kids like to wave. And so I was just to go along with what the girls were doing, I thought, well, what would I create an app about if it were something I were passionate about? The first thing that came to mind was Twitter. I would create an app to show educators how to use Twitter. So I just started brainstorming right there with the kids just to participate with them in the activity. And then later on, Namit said to me, you know, that idea you had for creating an app about Twitter, you really should do that. And that's really kind of where the genesis of TweetMe came about.
That's pretty great. And, what I love about that is there you are working side by side with your students. When I taught English, I did focus a lot on writing, and I found that the way to get students to really engage in something genuinely was to do it along with them, because they know that you're not going to waste your time. You might waste their time. They've seen teachers do that before. But teachers don't often waste their own time. So if you're actually going to do it, then it must be worthwhile. So, and I imagine that digging in like that really helped your kids to, understand the process more, and it probably helped with just their overall perseverance.
Yeah, and it was also helpful for me to understand the whole learning process and the whole app development process that they were going through, because I actually went through it myself. So I had to think about the same things that they were doing in terms of creating my own app. So it was a really great experience. It was a great experience for the kids. Their apps are available in the App Store for iTunes and Android. If you're interested, do a search for Crescerence, and their apps are there as part of the MadLearn program. But it was just such a great experience for me working along with the kids. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
So one of your kids, now I remember hearing about the Rainbow Loom app. That was one of your kids?
Yes, yes. In fact, it's had over 80,000 downloads. It's probably more now. That 80,000 number comes from a few weeks ago. Yeah, it's crazy. Those Rainbow Loom bracelets are really popular, and the app it's a free app, and you can find it if you do a search for Crescerence Rainbow Loom. So it will help you put the Crescerence in first, because there's a lot of apps for Rainbow Loom, but hers is specifically, you can find it by doing a search for Crescerence. But yeah, it took off. It really rode the wave of the Rainbow Loom popularity, and it's been great because she has been continuously adding content to her app, which is one of the benefits of using the MadLearn platform, is that the kids can continue to update their app very easily. And in fact, it's been so popular that she has to let Crescerence know whenever she's planning an update, because it's crashed their servers before, because so many people have downloaded the app. So it's been a really cool and empowering experience for that particular student, who's now in 6th grade.
Very cool.
I just found the link to the Android app. We'll send that out on the TechEducator hashtag there. So I'm sure that each of us has our own story about how, when you said it sounds, a little corny, but Twitter changed who you are as an educator. I mean, I totally agree with that, because if I wasn't involved in a vibrant community of educators online, I don't think I ever would have had the courage to go from being a high school English teacher to being a K-5 tech instructor, right? Like that just never would have happened, because where would I get that information? Where would I get those ideas? How would I know if I was doing anything correctly or not? Oh, good. Craig Yen tweeted out the Rainbow Loom app link before I got a chance to. Thank you, Craig Yen. I think that's the biggest change, because Twitter has brought amazingly thoughtful, interested, committed educators like Craig Yen into my life, right? Like, Craig Yen is there. He is solid. When he isn't there, something is wrong. I think all good communities have these kinds of people in them that are really, just those great, consistent folks.
Are you talking about another Craig Yen, or are we talking about the same one?
I love Craig Yen, man. He's launching his own show. Seriously, I'd like to throw it over to anybody else here. What difference has Twitter made? How do you see? At the beginning when I started using it, people were like, "Oh, I just don't have time." And I think to some degree it is an investment in time, but it's one that I think pays mad dividends. What do you guys think?
So, I mean, this is one of the many ways that Twitter has changed me as an educator, but one of the most kind of unique ones, and I'm sure all of you can agree too, is how it's changed my conference going experience. Going to a conference and knowing so many people through Twitter and knowing what their backgrounds are and their expertise, that networking component is just phenomenal. And being able to meet the people that you talk to on a regular basis through Twitter, I feel like it's just a much more rewarding experience than going to 4 sessions and calling it a day. You really extend those conversations, and I find that going to the conference to see the people that I interact with on Twitter is way more valuable than sometimes some of the sessions. So I just think that Twitter has really made a difference for me in terms of what I can get out of going to conferences.
I'm going to piggyback off of that because that's kind of where my launching point was in terms of the fact that I had the Twitter account. Actually, I think I mentioned this before, but the handle, my Twitter handle, came out of the fact that when I was student teaching, I used to do a fact of the day every day. So when I finished my student teaching assignment, I started the Twitter account to keep doing it, and if students wanted to follow along and kind of see where I ended up, that was I made it. So that was where I started it, and that was back in when that would have been the spring of 2011. So then I had this Twitter account, and I didn't use it very often, and then it was kind of there, and I'd jump on, and I'd kind of mostly just follow personal type stuff. I ended up winning some Brewer stuff once, Milwaukee Brewers stuff one time on there, so that was good. But that was basically what I was using it for. But then in the winter, December of 2012, I went to the Slate conference in Wisconsin, which is a pretty big technology conference. And that's really where I started to get into there and see it because they were emphasizing, using the hashtag, and so I really jumped in there. And then that's where I started to follow more people and get more followers, and then there was more interaction going on, connecting with a lot of other cool Wisconsin educators. Found out about Wish Chat at that point, and that was the first time I got into educational Twitter chats, which have really expanded my thinking, challenging it, giving me new ideas, and I think it really just kind of exploded from that point. So for me, it's the networking part. I often don't go to the teacher's lounge because I don't like going and hearing complaining about kids and complaining about this and that. So getting to connect with people who are kind of in the same place as me, it keeps you up. It keeps you from getting too discouraged or too cynical about things. Even though there are certainly those people that provide those very radical viewpoints out there, I think it's meant in a good way. Whereas, that's a need that doesn't always get met at school with the people you work with, even though they're great people. Getting to network with people who are kind of always positive, even though you may not see the other sides of them, they're positive on Twitter, so it does help keep you positive yourself.
I got to jump in on that point, Josh, because when you talk about people being so positive on Twitter, it's actually, personally, that kind of bothers me because those people at some point in their day, they have to experience, and I hate to say this, but the misery of teaching. There is that dark underbelly side of education that even the happiest person will experience. And I find it annoying sometimes in some of the chats where every conversation or all the questions are so altruistic and so Pleasantville. And, I don't know where I was going with that point, but I just wanted to bring the dark side to the conversation.
I do agree. I do agree with that, and I think I try myself then, because it isn't something I've noticed too. I probably am overly honest on Twitter a lot of times with when something I'm doing is just terrible. Like, oh, that didn't work out very well. Having a rough time. This didn't work. I'll blog about it and share the blog openly. So I feel like it's something that I've changed about as I've kind of grown over the past few years. It's just trying to be more open and honest and encourage other people to do that too. Because you're right. While people being positive is encouraging, it reaches a point where you start to get not as great of returns on that, and in fact go the other way. It's like, well, geez, I had a really rough day and my class was out of control and I'm trying to do all this great stuff and it's not working and it's working for everybody else. You're right. That kind of goes the opposite way.
That's when you got to go to the teacher's lounge. That's when you go to the teacher's lounge. You walk in there, you're like, OMG. I put my best stuff out there and they just chewed it up and spat it out. They hate me. And the other teachers be like, yo, I feel ya. And then you get your little group hug on, and then you go back.
Real quick, since we brought it up, we do have a question from Craig that's obviously Twitter related. What are some of your favorite Twitter chats that you attend?
Well, I'm going to be going to give selfish promotions to the two chats that I co-moderate. One, of course, would be EdTech Chat, which is Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We talk about all things education technology. And DigCit Chat, that's hashtag DIGCIT, which talks about digital citizenship, and that's the second and fourth Wednesdays of the month. But there are tons of great chats out there. Sat Chat on Saturday mornings at 7:30 Eastern Time, followed by Sat Chat WC for 7:30 Pacific Time on Saturday mornings. I'm a big fan of the NT2T Chat, which is the New Teachers to Twitter chat. That's a great place for both veterans and new teachers to go to connect and build a personal learning network and share ideas and resources. There's NT Chat, which was mentioned before, New Teacher Chat. There's PT Chat, Parent Teacher Chat. There's Sun Chat. There's BYOT Chat. There's Class. There's so many awesome chats out there.
Yeah. There really are, and there are regional chats. There are subject area chats. There are content area chats. There's grade level chats. There's a chat out there for whatever it is you want to talk about. And the nice thing about chats is it really helps cultivate an active use of Twitter, because you can use Twitter passively where it's just kind of around all the time, and I think that's the way a lot of people see it being used. But you could also just use it actively and say, oh, okay, on Sunday night between 8 and 9 Pacific, I'm going to be at California Ed Chat because David Terrio's there, and he's awesome. And I want to be part of that community. And, whatever they're talking about that week, you decide you want to show up to. Sometimes it'll be something where you'll find out that, oh, this week on Kids Can Code Chat, they're going to talk about, I don't know what the topic for this week is, but let's say it was robots. I would be like, wow, I'm going to make sure that I get done with my work really quick at the end of school so I can get online and chat robots for an hour. I have found that use of Twitter to be amazing, because even if I'm really tired at the end of the day, I will totally be into my second wind by the end of that Twitter chat, just because it's this active, vibrant conversation. And you go into it just to get to know people who are interested in the same thing you are, so that later on you have people that will answer questions when you have them.
Sam, which is your favorite chat?
My favorite chat is, there's so many out there. I ran a chat for a year and a half, and I love that chat. I love Sat Chat because of when it is, because it's like crazy early Saturday morning, especially if you're attending from the West Coast. And, I can get a pot of coffee going, and I can just totally zone into Twitter and pretend that's the whole world, and I have a great time.
I would say for those who have tried the Twitter chats and have been a bit overwhelmed by the speed and the volume of them, that there is the Slow Chat Ed, which kind of posts a topic for discussion and then allows a slower dialogue to take place over the course of a week. And I've been trying really hard this year, since January 1st, to be more part of that. I'd read about it last year, thought it was a great idea, tried it once or twice, thought it was great, and then just kind of let it slide. So it's one of my resolutions this year to be a part of that. It allows for a little bit more, little deeper conversation, I think, than maybe what you might get the first time you try and do a Twitter chat, and you could just kind of overwhelmed by how fast the feed is going.
Well, I think that's a good opportunity.
Let's do a round-robin chat resources management.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So, real quickly, if you're tuning in and you're new to Twitter or you haven't joined Twitter, a Twitter chat is basically a time that people get together. It's a set time to talk about a specific thing, like everyone's been mentioning, and you use the hashtag for that chat. And one of the easy ways that I use to follow a hashtag for a Twitter chat is it's actually a third-party website. It's tchat.io. I found that to be a really stable service. It's worked really well for me, and it's a responsive website too, so I can run it just as easily on my phone as I can on my web browser. That's tchat.io. All you have to do is load the page, enter the hashtag you want to follow, and it'll load the stream up real nicely. You can retweet, favorite, reply directly in that window. And to be honest, I've had no problems with that one. I've had, I've used TweetChat and those other ones too, but tchat.io has been really good to me.
I'm a fan. I like it.
Beautiful. What about you, Sam?
I'm a big fan. Well, we'll throw it over to Susan last because I think she's going to, really cinch this because she's like the expert, right? I love TweetDeck. I set up a TweetDeck account a long time ago, and I like being able to see the multiple columns. And when I get into a chat that's really moving, I'll have 2 or 3 columns in TweetDeck open just for that chat. I really like TweetDeck because it allows me to have access to multiple Twitter accounts at the same time. That way, when you're participating in a chat, if you really agree with something, you can retweet it and say like yes. But then if you really, really agree with it, you can retweet it and say yes with like 8 puppets doing exactly the same thing from their own Twitter accounts.
It's like a DDoS for Twitter. That's good.
Right, exactly. I mean,
That's really good. So, just a question about your comment there. What benefit do you find from having multiple streams of the same chat? What's that process look like?
Great question. So I have 2 columns running side by side, and you don't touch one, so it keeps scrolling. So you can always see what's happening right now in this one. And the one on the left is the one you interact with. So you can see, and it's funny because it'll tell you like if you're like 5 minutes out from the chat, 8 minutes out from the chat, and the further on in the chat you go, the further behind you get. There's been times where it's like 15 minutes ago. I'm responding to chats from 15 minutes ago, but I can still see the chats that are happening right now. So if I want to jump over, I can. But if I'm trying to like keep a thread going, especially 2 or 3 threads going, being able to have the freewheeling column here and then the responding to column on the left is really useful for me.
That's a really good idea. I like that a lot.
I think that's a fantastic tip. I'm looking forward to trying that in the next chat I participate in.
Yeah, well, when I was running the Patui chat, when I was doing a really great job, I would get a co-moderator, but there were some evenings where I was the only person running it, and we would actually get a bunch of people that showed up, and you want everybody to feel like, they really got, interaction and participation. But, that's challenging if there's just one of you running it. Now, from what I understand, they don't put people in Twitter jail quite as freely as they used to. But I used to run into that problem a lot also, and that's also why I have multiple Puppet accounts, so that if one of my accounts got locked up, I could jump over to the other account. Now, Susan, what's your Twitter chat management strategy?
I also use TweetDeck. I also have multiple columns. And I actually like the idea of having 2 columns for the actual chat hashtag because that's not something I've done previous. I'm going to steal that idea. Very excited about that. I have a chat for the hashtag itself. I also have a chat for the moderators. I actually have a Twitter list that I have created of the EdTech chat moderators. And if we have a guest moderator, I will add them to that list for the chat. So then I use that Twitter list to create a TweetDeck column. So that way I can always see tweets coming from the moderators. It makes it much easier for me to keep track of the questions. And because I always, as a co-moderator, I'm always trying to retweet the questions. Yeah. So it makes it much easier for me to keep track of the questions. And I'll do that with other chats as well. In fact, if you go to Twitter Advanced Search, which is at search.twitter.com, it'll allow you to create, in a very user-friendly environment, Twitter searches for, say, people with like multiple usernames, tweets from a particular person or what have you. And you can also use that. You can take the search verbiage that it generates and use that to create a TweetDeck column. So, and I do have videos for instance, how to create a column in TweetDeck using a Twitter list in TweetMe. So there's lots you can do. I'll also have a column for mentions and then a column for direct messages. in case I'm getting messages from someone else in the chat. And then if you are one of those people who likes to follow multiple chats at once, and I know during Ed Tech Chat, it's 8 o'clock on Monday nights Eastern Time. It's a very popular time. There's flip class going on. There's fourth chat going on. There's a lot of popular chats going on. Sometimes we'll have people who participate in both. Teacher librarian chats at the same time. So that way people will actually follow both chats.
That's really cool.
Yeah. I definitely love the ability to have a column in TweetDeck as a list. That's been so nice for me because, let's say for all the people who are in the Google Teacher Academy in Mountain View, I have a column for all of their tweets so I always can keep up to date with what they're doing. I have one of people that I find inspirational that usually tweet good stuff so I don't miss any of theirs. I have one for my family members, so anybody that I'm related to, I can always see what they tweet, which when you follow so many people, it kind of gets lost when you only really go on in the evening, so then you can always check up on that. And then, people at my schools, whether it was my last school, I had a column for them, so I can always see what the other teachers at my school were tweeting about. So it's a great way to, instead of following a hashtag, you're keeping tabs on the people that you really don't want to miss their tweets from.
Well, I guess I've got two things. One, I'm really always interested in the etymology of Twitter handles. Like for Sam, I didn't know, and it wasn't until you told me why your Twitter handle is PATUE. I didn't know what that was. And Josh, I didn't know why you were Mr. G Fact of the Day. I'm always interested, like, where were we in that moment in time where we created our Twitter handle, and what does it say about us? That aside, last year I spoke to the faculty at my school about the influence of Twitter on my own professional development, and I quoted Will Richardson, who I remember seeing at one point here in Connecticut, when he asked everyone in the audience, he said, we talk about our kids being too connected, but I think we need to flip that paradigm and ask ourselves, are we as educators connected enough? And as a result, I mean, not directly as a result of that question, but I think this year we've seen more classroom teachers start their Twitter accounts. And I think, like a lot of us have mentioned, like a lot of enthusiasm to get started. They followed a bunch of people, and then it just kind of died off. So I guess my question for you all would be, how do you continue to build? How do you get, I mean, I think a lot of us probably got started and then dropped off, and then there was something that happened that got us back in more consistently. What has worked for you to support teachers in using Twitter more, more deeply and more successfully in their classrooms and for their own professional development?
For me personally, it's having conversations like we're doing right now. Is just going through best practices and being able to effectively navigate all the just tremendous amount of content that's being shared on Twitter and bring it down to a more manageable set of information that will be beneficial to them. I think that when you're new to Twitter and you're not used to combing through the information that's being shared so rapidly, I think it's easy to get overwhelmed. And so I think, not just saying, hey, get on Twitter, there's a lot of great stuff going on there. It's more like, hey, let's sit down for a minute here and let me show you Twitter and show you how you can narrow it down to stuff that is particular to your content by, just doing, even if it's an English teacher, doing Ing Chat and just looking at the content that's being shared there. I think that that's huge. And then seeing that they can drill down to something so specific despite being billions of tweets a day, I think makes it something that's a little bit more real and a little bit more usable. So I like to at least not just say, get started on Twitter. It's here's how you can make Twitter work for you. Personally.
I agree. I really like introducing teachers to specific hashtags that would be meaningful to them depending on what their subject area is. So if they're a fourth grade teacher, I'm going to encourage them to follow Fourth Chat and even, do a shout out to Paula Noggle saying, hey, can you please welcome, so-and-so and, help them get connected. One thing I have actually found really helpful for newbies is connecting saved hashtag search to a Flipboard account. And that's because Flipboard presents articles in a very visually appealing format. And as we all know, when you're new to Twitter, just looking at the screen can be kind of intimidating. You've got 140 characters, you've got all of these acronyms going on, and you've got shortened links, and it's just visually a little bit intimidating for Twitter newbies. But I found that following a Twitter feed, whether it's your home feed or a hashtag feed on Flipboard, is less intimidating, and that helps people get accustomed to the idea of appreciating the content that's being shared on Twitter. And then once they really realize the value, I think then it's easier for people to go back and look at the Twitter web interface and make heads or tails of what's being shared because they've discovered what's meaningful about it first.
I like that. That's great. I'm still reeling from Google Reader being taken away from me, and then I've moved to Zeit, and now because Zeit has been purchased by Flipboard, I'm trying to get acclimated to Flipboard. So I'm getting there, but I love that idea of sort of creating the visual association with all those materials that are being shared on a consistent basis on Twitter.
And I think the Flipboard idea is nice because it helps you get over the idea that you somehow need to not miss things. I mean, I think a lot when I started on Twitter, it was very easy for me to read everything that came in on my Twitter feed. And now that's just totally unreasonable. And it took me a while to get to the point where to realize that, oh, well, that's just unreasonable. I shouldn't do that. And luckily, the way that Twitter works, everything gets retweeted, or everything that has a certain amount of appeal within the community gets retweeted enough that rarely does something only come around once. Unless it's one of Jeff Bradbury's tweets. If you don't catch that the first time, forget about it. It's never coming back. But what I've noticed is that by taking things out of Twitter to the curation tools, and Flipboard isn't the only one. You can do Paper LI, you can do Newsmix. There's all kinds of different ways that you can take, and maybe this is what we should move on to next. This Twitter account, we look at it as like, hey, here's my, let's pretend I'm Will Kimby. I'm going to say, hey, here's my cheeseburger, and like he finds the best ones, right? Or here's my steak for the day. But really, Twitter can be so much more powerful than that, and he makes a great use of it also. I think he mainly posts food to antagonize other educators because he's eating better than most of us. I mean, frankly, that's what makes me mad. It's like, not only are you posting pictures of your food, but it's really good food. I'm not going to post my pictures of the food. It'd be like one bowl of Cheerios. I'll just post that every morning. It's okay.
Eating it on top of the iPad cart.
Right,
Sam,
right. Eat it from the top of the iPad cart. What's that?
I was going to say, Sam, you could just take to posting pictures of the beautiful California weather.
Right, and I do quite, more often than I should, I'm sure. Like, hey, here's a sunrise. Frankly, it happened again. That means we have to go to work. More tweets will come. But other than, a way to share your day, your progress, where you're at, we can harness the collective wisdom of our PLN and put it in places to help us learn better. Places like Flipboard. How are each of you using your Twitter as a way to shape content? Chris, are you doing anything with any of these services?
I'm still a user of Zeit because I still have it on my iPad, and I used to use Flipboard, and then I found Zeit, so I'm going to keep using Zeit until I can't.
Are they going away?
Dave, I believe they're not supported, or they were purchased by Flipboard, as you had said.
They were purchased by Flipboard, yeah, and I think, every day I open it up, it's still there, I'm happy, but my guess is after a while it's not going to be there anymore.
I just imagine that it's just not going to be updated, but if you still have the app, you can still use the app. So that's my theory on that part. Somebody had mentioned Paper.ly before. Personally, I'm not a fan of Paper.ly because, sure, we all get quoted in them, but how many of you actually take the time to click on something and go and really click and use those links? Personally, that's not something I have found value in.
Yeah, if you're not it's the kind of thing that you want to be creating it for you to use more than anything. I think the people who are like, oh, here's a newsletter that I'm sure you're going to find valuable because everything has come through my Twitter feed. That's not something I'm really behind. But I actually have several different Paper.li accounts because it, it's like one spot I can go to, and they're for things like I work with an animal rescue and do some social media work with them. So I'm looking for a way to find good content to share on Facebook for something that I don't want to spend 30 hours a week combing through all the different social media. So, an auto-curate site like that can be helpful.
I like to have full control over my curation, but that's just me.
Right, and that's, appropriate. I think it's great that there are so many different tools that allow you to do those different levels. Because, for some things, I'm not going to spend a lot of time actively curating, but for others, I might.
I really have limited my curation to the things I favorite, and when I favorite it, it goes into two places. That I have it going into Evernote, into a special notebook, and I also have it going into Feedly. And my Feedly is the thing that I always go and read. I mean, that's all of my feeds are going into Feedly. And I know that if I favorite something, I'm going to want to go back to it later. Typically, it has a link associated with an article or whatever it may be. But I feel like I am much more likely to interact with the content that I've favorited if I have it going into Feedly as well, because I'm already going to Feedly to go through all of my RSS feeds. So that's been working really well for me, and in case you want to know how to do that, there's a bunch of recipes already created on If This Then That. We did a show, I think we talked about that a couple, maybe 5 or 10 episodes ago, but really great service to be able to use and connect it with Twitter or Feedly together.
I will agree, yeah. If This Then That I use for Twitter favorites too, and it's more just as a backup, but mine goes to Google Spreadsheet, so that's where my If This Then That recipe goes to, and mainly it's just to make sure I don't lose anything, because I find you can only look back so far, and a lot of times I knew I saw this one thing, and then as luck would have it, it's a month down the road that you need to see it, and you're looking back, and your Twitter, I don't know how far Twitter goes back on the favorites.
Forever. Forever.
Okay, so maybe I have it wrong. I don't know, but I felt like the spreadsheet is sometimes easier to look back at the favorites. So yeah, it's nice to have the extra place for it.
So Josh, I'm curious, how often do you go back and reference tweets you favorited in that spreadsheet?
It was more there just to test the IFTT feature, and though the other part of it is I am definitely a pack rat kind of person, where I like having things saved and backed up, and I don't want to miss or lose anything. So for me, that's kind of my fail-safe to have something like that.
Well, and the ability to go back and search your own tweets is a fairly new thing, and so I set up that if recipe a while ago to save all of my tweets to a Google spreadsheet. And I've actually used that many times where I've had, I remember I was talking to someone about such and such, and I could just go and do, Apple F or Control F in that spreadsheet and find exactly what I was looking for, and then jump back into that conversation with that person or find that resource. So I would say, it's not going to sound like a lot, but probably 24 times I've been like, I can find that information, whereas prior to me setting up that recipe, it kind of would have been gone forever.
Right.
Now I know that you can search for it in a way that you couldn't before.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
We have a new guest with us.
I'm just with a future tweeter here. Say hi, Miles.
Hi, Miles.
No.
Yes, literal.
Yes, stole the show. Done.
That's awesome.
Say, where's the puppet?
Where's the pup?
Where's Walker?
There's
Where's
Waka.
Where's the pup?
What? Miles. You could tweet him at Miles Nessie.
You see the puppet? Okay. All right, let's let them keep talking. We'll listen.
At Miles and Smiles. That should be his total Twitter handle right there.
All right, so Susan, I have a question for you.
Thank you.
So
Sure.
I've run one workshop in my district so far on Twitter, and it actually was kind of derailed from the beginning because I had requested Twitter be unblocked at our school for the session, and it was one of those partial unblocks where you can get to the site, but it's all not formatted and it's all just text and whatnot. So we were all trying to run the session on our phones, and then people were signed up and they didn't realize they were signed up and they didn't know their passwords. And so basically, by the end of the session, we had people after these 2 hours signed in. So it didn't go very well. But if I were to run another workshop on Twitter, what do you think are some of the really, let's say I have an hour, what would be some of the biggest things to cover in that hour to make sure people leave?
What I'll do sometimes is, well, if I'm conducting a workshop where I know who's going to be there, I'll ask people to set up their Twitter accounts ahead of time. So that way we don't have to go through that piece of it, because I know exactly what you're talking about. I've experienced that in workshops as well. I will also start people off with doing hashtag searches. So I'll tell them, because you can do a hashtag search regardless of whether you have a Twitter account. So if they don't have a Twitter account, I'll just say go to search.twitter.com, and then I'll just go around the room and find out what do they teach, what their grade level is, what subject do they teach, and just give them a couple of hashtags to start looking at. And I like to do that just because, I like to try to get people to see the value first. So I'll give people, 15 minutes to just search for a couple of hashtags, and then I'll ask them to report back on what kinds of resources that they found doing their hashtag search. And I found that helps people see the value right up front, and then maybe they're going to be more motivated to break the egg and upload a picture and write a bio, or maybe just stick with using the service. And I've also finally come to the realization that it is not uncommon for people to set up an account and then not do anything with it for a year. And so I kind of view that exposure counts. So even if someone goes to a session and they set up a Twitter account and they don't get it right away, well, you know what? 6 months later, they might get it the next time around, because I really don't know how many people actually set up a Twitter account and get it right off the bat and become gung-ho Twitter users. It seems like most of the people I've met have kind of done that whole start, stop kind of thing before they get involved. So I just try to keep, if possible, within my own school, I try to, keep reminding people about Twitter and, encourage to sit down with them one-on-one, get them set up with Flipboard. And I think that if people keep hearing about it repeatedly, that hopefully over time they may think, okay, well, maybe I'll give this Twitter thing a try.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. In fact, that last point you said of kind of about that incubation period is something that I mentioned too as well. That was one thing I did do in my workshop that I thought was a good point was, my expectation is that you will use this eventually, but if I'm speaking from personal experience, like I said, it was almost 2 years in between when I started my account and when I really started to leverage it for professional growth. So I think, getting them started and exposing them and not putting pressure on, you've got to use this right away, I think is good. So thank you for those tips. I especially love the hashtag search. I think that would have been really good to start with, and that would have totally changed our experience. So thank you.
And I think it's okay for people to start off by just lurking. I think that's the other thing, too, is even if people are on Twitter, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are actively tweeting or sharing tons of resources. And I think that's okay. I think there's a lot of value to lurking. In my ideal universe, of course, I'd love to see all educators actively participating in Twitter. But I've known several people who've started off by lurking, and maybe they may get involved later down the line. But even if they're lurking, they're learning stuff that's improving their professional practice. So that's a win.
Absolutely. Well, I have a colleague. Yeah, I have a colleague from my previous school who we got on Twitter, and that was a big push. And I got my last year at that school, got pretty zealous about Twitter and was talking about it a lot with people, and people started to sign up. And we did an ed camp. We both hosted an ed camp at our school that I really pushed people to go to, and we actually had an ed camp for Professional Development Day. And I think those types of things really got people, or more people than there were before, on the bandwagon. But I know she doesn't go out and tweet a lot, but I had her tell me once last year, oh yeah, I found this really cool article. She teaches tech ed, and it was about these really, this architecture stuff that she was going to implement in class. So, I mean, definitely that lurking piece is, that's really where you're getting the information, whereas at those other stages, and I think Victoria Olsen has an incredible video kind of about those different stages of Twitter. And yeah, that lurking part's really where you're getting the information to benefit you. As you go up that scale, it's providing your experience and letting other people in on that to help other people out. So definitely.
I'm starting a movement, Josh, for teachers in staff meetings, and it's actually to try and encourage more lurking and less talking. Because, when we're all sitting face to face, the expectation is we will all say something, and sometimes we even all go around and all say something, one right after the other. And there aren't that many things to say, really. I think we should all lurk more. Lurk more, talk less. Yes, that's a good hashtag, David. Good job.
Well, and I just did a quick search to see who among us has been on Twitter the longest.
Uh-oh.
Do we know who it is? Who's your guess? I just I quickly went through it all. I know Sam's looking like he thinks he's the winner. But
I'm gonna guess myself.
It is you, exactly. March of 2009.
Actually,
Nice.
a little Mr. G fun fact about that. Myself and Eric Scheninger started Twitter on the same day within hours of each other.
You started Twitter?
With Eric Scheninger.
Wow.
I think he did a lot more with it, Chris. I'm just saying. Was Dan Quayle in on that? I think you mean the other one. Oh.
What was Nessie's day?
March of 2009, and Sam was September 2009. So
wow.
See, my account that I don't use, my @JeffHerb, was February of 2009.
Oh, how convenient!
Ooh.
Yes.
My secret account. That's just slightly older than your known account.
Yes. I have a spoofing tool too that makes it look like that. No. The only reason I checked is because it sounded like that was around the time that I got involved in it too. So that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. So with just a few minutes left, we've talked about a lot of the things with Twitter. One of my favorite parts was just how we ended up talking about how everyone's kind of bad at Twitter at some point. Like, that's a developmental stage of Twitter. Like, you get the Twitter and you're bad at it, and you tweet things like, "I was just butted by my own goat." That was one of my first tweets. Clearly had no idea what I was doing, and now it's oh so much better. Quiet puppet. What would be your Twitter wish for the coming year? What's your Twitter wish or mission? Who wants to start first? Susan, can we start with you?
Sure, I would love to get as many educators as I can active on Twitter. That's the reason that I created TweetMe. I was trying to find a way to make it easier for educators to get started on Twitter. I thought, well, if I have videos that people can go back and watch all in one place on their mobile device, that might make it easier for them to stay with it. But that would be my wish, would be to get more and more educators connected.
I'll go next.
Josh.
And I'll jump in. I
Jump in.
kind of want to do the Eve Martin, if I had one wish thing from Saturday Night Live, Christmas wish.
Oh man, you just stole my thunder. But go ahead, have fun with it.
No, I can't remember it properly, so I'm not going to do it. But my wish, as always, is to get more people around me involved. I mean, I just think about the impact it's had on my life, whether directly or indirectly. And I look at just in the past year, opportunities like the Google Teacher Academy. I wouldn't have even known what that was if I would never have been on Twitter, which means I wouldn't have even been connected to this podcast, which obviously this is a huge, great part of my life right now. So, I need to get more people around me because, there's 300 teachers in my district, and the only one that's using Twitter regularly, okay, there's two. One of them is the football coach about football stuff, which is a fine use of it. And then the other is a fourth grade teacher who is a new teacher into the district just like me. So we gotta get more people. We obviously love it. We're passionate about it. So we need to just find a way to get more people involved.
Yep, I'm hoping to bring it with a little bit more fidelity to my building. and really get as many teachers at my building as I can. I know that that's something that I have had total control over, and I just haven't done it. But it's something that I really need to roll out more. I mean, I've done it in more like one-on-one, one on a few conversations, but it's definitely something that we can roll out with some more fidelity.
All right, I'm going to take a stab at this, and we're going to see what happens.
If I had one wish that I could wish this holiday season, it would be that all the children of the world join hands and sing together in a spirit of harmony and peace.
And I'm going to just jump on Steve's point, and in addition to a great holiday wish, also wish that we can get as many, whether it's students using technology responsibly and being good digital citizens, and being able to make those same connections that are going to, last a lifetime in many cases, the same way that, it's been my personal mission in my own school to push people almost to the point where they could file a bully report, to try and get into social media and really develop the PLN, because one of my personal beliefs is, as much as a school district may be able to lock down technology, they can't tell you as an adult you can't connect with other people and have these great professional conversations. And I think that's something that every teacher should be exposed to and try and experience, and in terms of using this medium and this platform.
Amen, brother.
Very cool.
And thank you to Steve for hopping in for a second.
I was going to say, so now can we say that Steve Martin has been on the Tech Educator podcast? Because that might boost our ratings.
Right? We
And
can
also
tweet
might
at
get
him.
us filed in a lawsuit, too. But, either way.
There is no bad press. All press is good press.
There you go.
Well, we have done it. We have spent the entire hour talking about how great Twitter is, and I still believe it. Susan, thank you so much for all of your hard work in getting teachers to Twitter and actually putting together the TweetMe app. We encourage all of you to check out that app and recommend it to your friends who aren't yet on Twitter. Are they social media averse? Are they underconnected? You can say, look, you can spend that time all by yourself with this app and a very nice person who's going to show you how to use Twitter. They're nicer than I am, and I'm just telling you about this app so you can go work with them.
Well, just real
I like
quick,
it.
one of the really cool things about the app, I love how it's broken down by Twitter 101, 201, 301. It just really breaks it up nicely so that people can kind of get their feet wet, get a basic footing, and then work their way to more advanced stuff. So if you are new to Twitter and you need to really get engaged and get some more instruction as to how to be more effective with it, I think that the app that Susan's created is really great.
Excellent. I'd like to thank Brent and Peggy. I neglected the chat box as we were working here, but there was a lot of people, kind of talking back and forth in there. Something about 1 million followers and a Dr. Evil emoticon. It looks like there might have been some interesting stuff going on in the chat.
I think that's Brent's goal, is to have Twitter domination.
Okay, that's a good goal. But I have found that actually my end experience changes based on the people I follow and not based on the people who follow me.
Mm-hmm.
But,
True. Good stuff.
We are the Tech Educator Podcast. We're going to go through real quick and tell you where to find our stuff. I'm Sam at My Paperless Classroom, throwing it over to Chris.
Great to be here again tonight. My name is Chris Nessie, and I run the House of Ed Tech podcast, and you can find all of my content over on chrisnessie.com.
I'll go next. Jeff Herb, Instructional Tech Talk and EdTech You Should Know podcasts. You can find all of my content at instructionaltechtalk.com.
Okay, I'll jump in. You can find me at Mr. G Fact of the Day. I blog on occasion at mrgtechchats.blogspot.com because I'm not cool enough to have my own website yet, but someday. It's on the list of things to do in 2015, and so I actually just posted a new blog post for like the first time in a month this past week. So yeah, good stuff. I'm overly honest and probably share too much on there, but that's where I am.
I'm David Saunders, and I'm excited to be here. And for next week, we have Google Classroom we'll be talking about. And you can find me at Design Saunders on Twitter or designsaunders.com.
Now, David, I heard a rumor that we had Alice Keeler on the show for next week.
We do have Alice Keeler, yes. And assuming all things go according to plan, we also have Jen Holland, who's the product manager at Google for Education on the Classroom product. So we're excited to have a great show next week as well.
Nice.
Very cool.
Nice
Awesome.
job, David.
All right, guys, we're ties. We're ties. Pretend we work here. Susan, thanks again for being on the show. It was great having you. And thank you to everyone who's taken the time to share and learn with us today. See you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks, Susan.
Bye, Susan. Thank you.
Good show.